Today I'm going to review Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics. So Thinking Fast and Slow, it's this really authoritative, kind of comprehensive book all about cognitive biases and how when we're kind of dealing with decision making and looking at probabilities, we're systematically biased. We have our brain has multiple systems for thinking about things, and one of these systems is really good at making snap judgments and really instinctive takes on danger and various things. But it's kind of biased because it can't do logical steps and it can't think in certain ways. So it's very biased. And a lot of times what we do is we fall into these traps when we're thinking about things. And we use this first instinctive system, which is called System 1. And we kind of make these snap judgments and we're not really looking at the problem clearly. And all of these biases, and there's a lot of them in the book, they kind of influence the way we make really big decisions, and a lot of them have create problems in society and business and all kinds of ways because people are just thinking about things a little bit irrationally. This book made a really big impact or not this book necessarily, but kind of the research the book is based on, made a big impact in like economics and psychology, really more probably in economics. I think in like the 80s, 80s to 90s, I think is when it hit. And in economics, there used to be this view that humans were these rational economic thinking machines, and we would make all these value judgments and we'd balance things. Anyways, most economic theories, they were based on this idea that humans were extremely rational and we thought things through completely, and a lot of economic calculations are based on this assumption. And what this research showed back then was that humans are really biased, and a lot of these economic systems don't function the way we think they do because humans don't think the way economists thought we thought. We're not nearly that rational. We're prone to all these mistakes. And there's this kind of this big push into behavioral economics. And Thinking Fast and Slow is not really about economics. It's more about psychology and cognitive biases. But it's really tied into economics. Coming from that kind of side of things, those biases, that's a whole field within economics. It's a big thing. I don't know in like kind of course psychology fields if there's as much focus on biases. But this book, regardless, this book is like the definitive book on the subject. It's very influential. The author, it says it's only Daniel Kahneman, and that's who wrote the book, and that's who won the Nobel Prize. But the research in the book was almost 50% probably done by another guy named Amos Tversky, who is this. He was an Israeli clinical or cognitive psychologist, and he was partnered with Kahneman for most of his career, and they did a lot of research together. But Amos died young. He was like 49. He passed away. And then that's why he didn't get the Nobel Prize, because they don't award it after you're dead. And then, so this book is kind of written by Daniel Kahneman, but there's this other guy that's kind of floating around who's mentioned quite a bit. I really enjoyed this book. This book is really wonderful. It's kind of written, the book is probably 70% just explanation of cognitive biases and how to deal with them, and very like informational and straightforward. And there's probably another 20 or 30% of the book, which is this like argumentative way of writing, and it's comparing the rational economic model of person to this kind of new biased version that this book lays out a framework for understanding the System 1 and System 2. And so it kind of compares these two competing theories. They're really economic theories. If you're not into economics, this 20-30% of the book probably won't be of much interest to you. But if you are interested in economics, it's there. It's a big part of the book. Uh, so overall, I would definitely recommend this book. I thought it was a really great book. Um, Most people should probably read this book because the book talks about just how to think clearly. I think almost everyone could benefit from reading it and understanding it, but especially if you work with probabilities or you're in a more maybe a quantitative field where you're making a lot of judgments and you kind of need to estimate things accurately uh, pretty frequently. This book would be really great to read and just to understand how people are wrong systemically when they're thinking about certain things. The only con in this book is that the second half of the book gets pretty tedious. So the first half of the book, he's giving you this framework for system 1 and system 2 and how these two kind of brain systems work together and how they operate. And then it starts getting into some of the ways it's not that great. And then it moves into this chunk of the book where it just talks about all these different areas or types of biases. And in each of these sections, it'll tell you, what the bias is, how it works, how the standard economic model of thinking compares to this new theory, and then it gives you some tools for dealing with the bias if you want to overcome the bias in your own life. And it gets kind of tedious because there's like 8 or 9 of these in a row, and they're kind of long, and it's, after like 6 or 7, you're like, all right, where's this going? You're not like getting anywhere as far as like the big picture of the problem. You're just going through all these different biases, and it takes a long time. It's a big chunk of the book, and it's a grind, and you kind of got to push through the end. All the information in these sections is really good, so you need to read them all because it's talking about important biases, and I mean, they're all relevant. It's just the way the book is written, there's a lot of ground to cover, and it kind of feels tedious in the end. But that's the only kind of con for this book. It's a really great book. I think it deserves like all the praise it's gotten. It probably deserves to be as influential as it is. It's really good. I liked it a lot. I definitely recommend it. So if you're interested in thinking more clearly, pick the book up, give it a read, and you'll probably learn a lot. So I hope you guys like this video. I've got more book reviews coming soon, so like, subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.